Welcome to the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your employees all the information they need to be successful at their jobs. Now, let's get started with the show.
Dr. Jeremy Weisz here, host of the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your staff everything they need to be successful at their job. Ben, I like to point to past episodes. Some of my favorites. I mean, they're all great, but David Allen of Getting Things Done was really good. Michael Gerber of the E-Myth was really good, and there's just many, many more. There was another one with a lady that owns a dentist office. She just talked about all of the systems and processes, and it's really the stuff that makes things work, right? And we'll talk about that today, and I'll introduce formally Ben Carlson in a second. But before I do, this episode is brought to you by Sweet Process. So if you've had the same team members in general ask you the same questions over and over again, and it may be the 10th time you spent explaining it, well, there's actually a better way. There is a solution. It's called Sweet Process. It's a software that makes it drop dead easy to train and onboard new staff and save time with existing staff. And I was asking Ben, one of the founders, Owen, like, who uses the software, right? And he's like, well, universities, banks, hospitals, software companies use them. But what I realized from talking to them, that actually there's first responder government agencies that use them in life or death situations to run their operations. I'm like, well, that'd be cool to tell people. So you can use Sweet Process to document all the repetitive tasks that eat up your precious time so you can focus on growing your team. And you can sign up for a free 14-day trial. No credit cards required. You can go to sweetprocess.com, sweet like candy, SWEET process.com. Today, as I mentioned, we have Ben Carlson. He's Director of Operations at Total Mechanical. And he also is an amazing golfer. If you're watching the video, there's a trophy behind him. But Ben, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
There's a topic I want to talk about with you, okay, which is this kind of idea of momentum and how small changes over time lead to significant growth. But we were talking before we hit record about a growth opportunity that your company has, and talk about the growth opportunity and exploring that growth opportunity.
Yeah, so my company, Total Mechanical, has been around for 40 years. I was just recently brought on a few years back, but for most of the time, we just did new construction or tenant improvement or like remodels or repair work. But every time we built one of these new buildings or we do a tenant expansion, our clients were always like excited about it, and at the end they say, "Oh, can we hire you for a service contract, to take care of this building and the systems after you've built them?" Yeah. And we've always, it's a little bit messier getting involved in service, and so we've never done that until we never felt like we could do a good job at it. And then about 2 years ago, we kind of finally caved and said, well, maybe we have enough of these that we could maybe piece together a department. And so as we pieced this department together 2 years ago, I realized, well, we have enough to maintain part of a department, but if we want to actually turn this into a service where we can do better for our clients or expand this piece of the company, we're going to need to not just rely on our construction side. We're going to have to actually go out and get new clients that just want service, and maybe we can use that to maybe feed more clients into our construction side.
That makes sense. Yeah. What's interesting is, so just to be clear, you guys help with all the kind of the infrastructure of the HVAC and plumbing in some of these developments, like hospitals, commercial spaces. How else would you explain so people kind of understand more about exactly what you do?
Yeah, so we do plumbing systems, so the same kind of systems that are in your house or in buildings everywhere, and we install those and take care of them. But there's a lot of specialty systems that you don't think about, like there could be situations where you need vacuum systems where the entire waste system's under pressure. where you can't have clogs or overflows happen like in hospitals or in prisons or things like that, where there's additional risks to having stuff overflowing or water damage. There's big pieces of equipment that require cooling, like MRIs and things like that, that are multiple millions of dollars a piece, that require piped in chilled water, right? And then you can also think about systems like when the doctor connects in a surgery center, the vacuum system where they're using to clean blood, or
you cannot have that breaking down. I mean, if that breaks down, someone's on the table open. That's a serious problem.
Yeah, so the systems are redundant, but every so often one will get clogged, and that's usually the technicians in the field. They all draw straws for who has to go and clog it.
How does that work? You actually have to get in there, and we're talking like blood and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they call it acid waste.
So can next time they wear a GoPro and like we can all watch along with them? Have you ever thought about doing that?
It's not really something you'd want to go watch. That and the waste side of plumbing doesn't get talked about a lot.
I think you should throw that in the ring. Okay, we're putting in a GoPro on the next person who draws this to unclog this thing. So thanks for giving an idea of that. It's a specialty within a specialty, right? And so when I say things like the small changes over time that lead to significant growth, what do you think of when we think of small changes?
Well, in the construction industry is really hesitant to change or adopt new technology, and so I look at over the past 10 years, if you rewound some of the businesses that we work with, and even us in some aspects, 10 years, almost nothing has changed. We're still using Excel to manage projects. We're still using the same email apps. We're still using Word documents that we email back and forth, right? And 10 years ago, when a lot of these new productivity things have come out, we always say, oh, well, it's not specifically designed for construction. It's not going to work. So when I think about small changes, I think about, hey, let's just push the envelope forward 5% here on something and stop looking for this silver bullet. And let's just focus every day on, making these processes a little bit better.
What have you been seeing that over the past several years, you implemented these small changes? What will be some examples that you felt led to, some significant growth?
Yeah, so our accounting department's a good one, because there's there aren't a lot of construction accounting software that's specifically designed for our size of company and our specialty of company. And so really focusing down and looking at hey, what's our accounting solution doesn't have an option for electronically managing the coding of invoices and things like that. And so how can we just either create that system inside ourselves or purchase another system and layer it on top so that we can capture some of this time savings and efficiency of being able to process those digitally, instead of looking for a new accounting system or trying to petition our current one to add it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of technology, software, product efficiency side. What are some of the technology and software that you rely on and like to use?
So Microsoft Power Automate has been a big help recently, and kind of getting into using that. We started experimenting with Notion a little bit, and being able to put our our documentation and publish it really quickly, and have it access to everybody. And then in addition to that, we have in the field, we've been exploring this concept of 3D design and using the Trimble systems to help efficiency in the field, where once we've kind of designed a project, or when we receive the plans, we'll create a 3-dimensional model of it in the office, and then maybe we'll we manufacture some of it before we head it out to the field.
So has that type of software been around a long time, or has that been adopted lately?
Within the past, 5 or so years, it's been adapted. So,
Any other, when we talk about the idea of momentum, any other small changes that come to mind? You said the accounting piece that you feel has been a game changer.
yeah. I think employee development, a company our size, we've got about, 35 people in the office and maybe about 100 to 150 in the field. And when you're a company this kind of size, it's hard to justify hiring, or hiring somebody just to do employee development, or hiring a coach, or, especially with the kind of fast-paced construction environment where it's kind of this boom-bust cycle that you don't necessarily know when it's going to be busy and when it's not. Just taking time and focusing on, hey, let's, instead of trying to plan some retreat altogether or hire somebody to do, professional development coaching, let's just, focus on spending 30 minutes a week, doing something or creating some program for our employees, or telling our employees, giving them a certain amount of time each week just to, focus on what they want to be developed on.
What has worked as far as that? What programs have people liked, or what have they chosen to do?
We started out a few years back. We had, we bought a subscription to lynda.com, that training program, and that had mixed results. A lot of people like the idea of having this available training, but other than a few use cases, people didn't really utilize it. So we experimented with a few other things, and eventually we landed on this idea of professional development book club. So we'll just organize a few of these book clubs, and we'll take recommendations from people on, hey, what are some books that you've heard about that you want to read that are somewhat related to professional development. And so it just, you kind of hold their feet to a fire a little bit when you say, hey, if this is the book you want to choose, let's do it. And here's the reading schedule. And we get together and we talk about it a few times, and we talk about, a couple 30-minute meetings every other week, just to talk about what our takeaways have been from that book and how we can implement them into the workspace. And we've seen a lot of people not only wanting to participate in that, but then also going and starting their own groups within the company. What
were some of the books that were popular?
Turn the Ship Around by L. David Marquette was extremely popular. Fierce Conversations was really good. And, those two have been the biggest, gotten the most positive feedback on those kind of two books.
How do you run the meeting? So people are showing up 30 minutes. Are they in person? Are they on Zoom? How many people are participating in that?
So we'll try to keep the group small, maybe 5 or less people. And then traditionally it's been in person, but lately it's, been on Zoom. And then we usually designate a facilitator, which is usually me or, somebody else that has either read the book before or gone or attended some of these classes. And then we'll, open up the floor and say, hey, what stood out to you from the book? What have you been working on? And then typically the facilitator will bring just 1 or 2 questions or, thoughts that they had on the book. And then we're big on everybody coming away with it with a challenge for themselves to work on for the next couple of weeks, and then reporting back on the next meeting, kind of how that went.
I want to talk about, Ben, a myth buster for a second. Okay. And I would love to hear, some of the things you've learned in this industry that maybe you didn't know that surprised you. We were talking before we hit record, and you were saying, when you pass those big plants and you see this white stuff going into the air, I always thought it was just pollution from a factory. Okay, that's what I thought. And then you were mentioning what it actually is, and I was like, wow, okay, I was totally wrong. I thought all these facilities were just throwing pollution and smoke into the environment. What is that actually?
Yeah, it's a little concerning when you look at your hospital window and you just see this giant plume of, stuff coming past your window and getting sucked back into your room. But it's just water vapor. So those are big cooling towers where heated water will come through these coils that are kind of like, accordioned across large, and stacked across each other. And then they'll spray water over these coils to cool them down. And that's just the water coming in contact with that heated water, and as it cools, just evaporating.
It's not what I was making up in my mind. Just pollution spraying into the air. Are there any others? What's that?
There's a common joke in our industry where if you get somebody new or somebody who's maybe fresh out of college, you'll be walking through these mechanical levels, and there'll be like a big burst of this steam coming across, and everyone will walk through it, and then you'll turn around and say, "Oh my God, did you breathe that in?" And every single time their face is just, it's priceless.
It's hazing in your world. Are there any other, I don't know if they're myths per se, but things that you've learned that that you had no idea or that surprised you?
Yeah, I guess just the technology that goes into managing airflow within a building, is really surprising. And then some of the new energy efficient kind of machinery, I guess, that goes into recapturing heat that was previously lost out of buildings and out of water systems is pretty impressive. One of the new there's an architect firm down here that we're building their new office called PAE. They're building a building called the Living Building, which is a net producer of clean energy and water, and it's going to be the largest living building in the world, and it's being built down here in downtown Portland. But the systems they're putting in, they're handling like sewage treatment on site, and they're handling water treatment and gray water treatment on site, which is not something that you would ever think about. Where and there's a lot of places where even you have a large facility, it may be beneficial for you to recycle your own water on site and use it for irrigation or something like that.
Why are they doing it? Is it? I'm assuming it's also gonna be more costly to do that too in the short term, right?
Yeah, you see a lot of these systems are a lot more costly up front, but the long-term payout is actually a lot more positive.
Talk about airflow. You're mentioning airflow. I mean, that doesn't enter into most people's minds, but now when we are talking pandemic, it's on everyone's minds, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it sounds like, the company has been, has this and knows the kind of the most cutting edge technologies and how to manage this. What have you heard or have you seen facilities call you to help with these issues right now?
Yeah, I know when this all first started, a big, there's been a big push for energy savings in the past decades or so leading up to this. And so one of the ways they do that is they just recycle the air that's in your current space, right? They suck it out through your return air, add some new outside air, mix it together, heat it back up, and then put it back into your building. Well, with COVID, it's just, especially in a hospital or something like that, it's just, you don't want to have as much of that recirculation of air. So got a lot of calls to just, hey, let's change these HVAC unit, the mix of air, to be more outside air. And so they call them, it's called the OSA settings. So they said, oh, increase the OSA setting so that we get more fresh air in here. We're not recirculating this, airborne virus. And then we finally, changed a lot of these settings. And then, the fires happened in Oregon at the end of summer. And so we were sucking in all of the smoke from the outside air into all these spaces. And that's when we really started looking at, hey, what's some additional like emerging technology that can figure this out? And there's a company that creates these things called dual ionizing field generators. And it's this small box that you put on your HVAC unit, and it creates a dual ionization field within your unit. So as the air passes through it, it charges the particles in your air both positively and negatively. And when it gets dispersed into your area, all of those particles start sticking together and finding other particles in the air and stick together. And they either are heavy enough to fall down out of the air or even heavy enough that...
So you don't breathe in some of these things that are not bad, not good for you to breathe, essentially.
Right. And, a virus can pass through most filtration, right? Because it's so small, but this dual ionization causes it to stick with particles that are larger and fall out of the air.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's all, did they show you, give you an example display in like magnification, like what it actually looks like? Because obviously we can't see in the naked, that'd be kind of cool to see in the naked eye. You see this virus come in and it all attaches and it drops to the ground. And it's like you're in a war zone of viruses. They're just like, dropping to the ground. Did you see anything like that of what that actually looks like under?
Yeah. And it looks like straight magic. First off, when we're looking at this technology, it's a little expensive. And, when we're reading all the technical specifications, like all these, it's just a bunch of words and diagrams and all that stuff. And then they're like, oh, let's show you this video. And they have this big, huge glass jar. It's like, this huge glass jar, and it's just full of black smoke. You can't see through it. It's just full of smoke. And they attach this device to the top and they turn it on, and it literally, this fast, the smoke just
gone
out of it. And I just remember looking at it, I was like, that's not real. You should be leading with this. Like, this is what everybody needs to see.
The rest of the hour of you telling me charts, just show me the display.
Yeah.
What was it called again?
The dual ionizing field generator.
Yeah.
The company that we purchased it from kind of escapes me at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's cool. The dual ionizing field generator. I'm like, I need one for my house now.
You can get one. They're maybe $800 or so.
Okay.
But it's pretty easy. It's just, for residential ones, it just has some magnets that just sticks to the side of your unit.
I love it. Ben, I want to say thank you. I want to point people towards the website, totalmechanical.com. Check out more episodes of the podcast. Check out Sweet Process. And Ben, I'm the first one to thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Process Breakdown Podcast. Before you go, quick question. Do you want a tool that makes it easy to document processes, procedures, and/or policies for your company so that your employees have all the information they need to be successful at their job? If yes, sign up for a free 14-day trial of Sweet Process. No credit card is required to sign up. Go to sweetprocess.com, sweet like candy, and process like process.com. Go now to sweetprocess.com and sign up for your risk-free 14-day trial.
Hi, this is Owen, the CEO and co-founder here at Sweet Process. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast interview, actually, you know what I want you to do? Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. That way we get more people aware of the good stuff that you get here on this podcast. Again, go on to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Looking forward to reading your review. Have a good day.